Grampia Nation, the number one fear in America is the fear of public speaking. I found the cure, and you're going to meet him. Stand by for Dominic.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Grampia Nation, join me in welcoming Dominic Colenso to the program, to the show. Man, I'm a fanboy, so welcome to the Grampian. How are you?
Really good. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be here.
All right. So as I told you when we sat down a little bit ago, I'm a fan, and I found you because the number one fear in America is speaking from a public stage or public speaking or talking to more than 10 people, I think. And I found a coach on YouTube, and it was you. And I want to say, first of all, thank you, because I'm a fan. Thank you, thank you, thank
It's
you.
always amazing, and you'll know this from this amazing channel. Like, you reach people all over the world that you've never met before. So this is so exciting to be connecting and sharing some more ideas here with your audience.
Yeah. So you are, and I have to like dig deep to remember, but you are an author, an actor. Well, first an actor, that's your youth, but author, actor, communications expert, coach, and now second, third time author, et cetera, et cetera. But before that, you were something. Tell us about your coming up years when where'd you grow up and where are you?
I grew up in
Family
the
stuff.
UK, hence the accent, and spent the first 15 years of my life living in the UK, and then actually I moved to Germany when I was 16. So I've travelled a little bit internationally. My dad got a job out there, and while I was out there, I went to an American international school. So I had lots of international friends, lots of American friends, and I had an amazing drama teacher, theatre teacher called Liz Manning. And she just kind of unlocked something for me in terms of performance and in terms of curiosity around what it takes to stand on stage and hold an audience's attention. And so when it came to deciding what my career path was going to be, I was either going to be a lawyer or an actor, and I figured, to be honest, they were the same thing. But I thought I can try the acting out first, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go and get a law degree, and that's what happened.
So are you sorry if we've offended any actors, right? All right. So you at one point went to acting school to like this is like a professional acting school. What was that?
So it's really, I went to probably the most serious acting school in the UK at the time. It was a place called Drama Centre London. Um, some of your listeners might know Tom Hardy, who was in the year above me. People like Colin Firth, Piers Brosnan, very kind of intense kind of method school. And I
Yeah.
spent 3 years there training as an actor from the age of 18 to 21. It was kind of like military boot camp meets Theatreland. So we were in at 8 o'clock in the morning. We didn't get out until 9 o'clock at night. We had voice classes, movement classes, acting classes. We got really deep into the kind of research and the history of theatre. And it was one of those things that was just like really overwhelming, but also really brilliant. And I look back on those years with a huge amount of fondness. It was tough, it really was,
Yeah.
but it shaped who I am today.
And so if Brosnan is 007, that makes you a little younger. You're 008.
But maybe 009.
009. All right. No offense intended. But so you get out of acting school and then you're starting to land pretty big gigs. You appeared in Thunderbirds alongside Bill Paxton. And tell it, what was it like working in Hollywood?
It was crazy, right? Because I was just out of drama school, British actor, and suddenly being given this opportunity to be in this big budget Hollywood movie. It was actually filmed in the UK, so Jonathan Frakes, who was Riker in Star Trek, was the director, and he came over to film at Pinewood Studios, which is where they make all of the Bond films, and they were really struggling to find British actors who could do an American accent. And I remember being told by my agent that I got this audition. I was really excited, and I got sent to meet the casting director. It was a lady who's no longer with us called Mary Selway. And Mary had cast pretty much every major British movie that had ever been made at that point. So I was like in the presence of a legend. And she said to me, how's your American accent? And I thought, I'm not going to let this pass. So I said, I've got it nailed, to be honest. I went to an American international school, which is true. I got a lot of American friends, which is true. And we'd done loads of accent work at drama school. And I was pretty, proficient when it came to American, which was not so true at all. And she said, all right, well, here's the script. Go into the car park and come back in 5 minutes. I'll put you on.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, what have I done? So I walked off into the car park, and I tried to learn the lines and tried to kind of get my mouth around the Americanism, and I came back into her office to be recorded. We sat down, she turned the camera on, we finished the scene, and she turned to me and she went, okay, I'd like you to come back to Universal Pictures offices next week and meet with the director. And my heart literally kind of skipped a beat. This is like my big break. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. And she went, and Dominic, yes, Mary, what is it? Make sure you work on that dreadful American accent. And so I spent the next kind of week there were only 20 or 30 lines that I had to prepare, but I got an accent coach. I phoned my American friends who kind of worked on all of this stuff. And then I remember going into the Universal offices on Oxford Street in the centre of London, and walked into the boardroom, big table. Jonathan Frakes is sitting down the other end, and I'm like a massive Star Trek fan, so I'm like, oh gosh. And he starts talking about the part and saying we've really struggled to get a British actor who can do the American accent. And Mary, who was sitting next to me, just piped up at that point and went, oh, don't worry, Jonathan. Dominic's got the American accent sorted. He went to an American international school. And I kind of went, oh, no, what's going to happen here? And anyway, I read the part, got to the end. Jonathan's a big guy, about 6'4". He got up from the table. He pointed at me and he went, now there's an American accent. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, there's a great lesson there, and I struggle sometimes coaching entrepreneurs because I can't get them to just go, oh yeah, I can do that, and then figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just say yes. It's the answer is always yes. Now it might be yes, but or yes and, but the answer is always yes.
Absolutely.
What a great lesson.
My first job as an actor was with Michael Gambon, who went on to play Dumbledore in the Harry Potter films. And I remember sitting in the makeup chair next to him as we were preparing for a scene. And it was so early on in my career, I just wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to learn from everyone. And I said to him, Michael, have you got any advice? And his piece of advice was, just say yes to everything.
Awesome. So you also said yes to writing a book. And now the book that I'm familiar with is Impact, but was there one before that as well?
Impact was the first one.
Impact
Cut
was the
Through
first
is
one.
the second. Yeah.
Okay. So Impact, tell us about the reason you wrote it. And I know it's a bestseller. So give us a thumbnail sketch about Impact.
So I wanted to take my experience as an actor and translate it into something that people in any walk of life could use. And I've been working with businesses for probably about 9 or 10 years by the time I wrote the book. So I'd road tested all of these exercises and this whole approach. But what I hadn't done is formulated it into a really easy step-by-step guide. So I started looking at all of the principles that I was teaching and all of the ideas that I was sharing. And it became almost instantly apparent to me when I started putting all of these things onto Post-its and grouping them together that essentially there were 6 ingredients that I was talking about. And what I've done in Impact is distilled the art and science of communication down into essentially 6 steps. So you have your
Yeah.
intention. What do you want people to know, feel, do? That beginning with the end in mind. You have mindset. We all hear voices in our heads. And
Right.
if you're listening to this thinking, what's he talking about? I don't hear a voice. That's exactly the voice I'm talking about. The next piece is presence, physical and vocal. So, how do you take up space? How do you deliver your message with an energy that makes people want to lean in, not lean out?
Yeah.
Then we've got audience. Who are they? How do we step into their shoes? The C in the model is content. Most people start with the content, but the content
Yeah.
isn't the starting point. That comes later.
Right.
And then the T in the model is technique. And that's about being authentic, right? So my desire as a coach when I'm working with senior leaders, when I'm working with CEOs or sales teams, is not to try and make that person or those people communicate like me. It's really helping them be the best version of themselves. So which bits can you
Yeah.
turn up and which bits can you turn down?
So one of the things that I love about your YouTube channel is that all the motions that I'm seeing now, you say lean in and you lean in, and you say back up and you back up, and you're speaking with your hands. And when you say me and mine, you're actually tapping your chest and and what you're doing is kind of communicating in the third dimension, because it's visual and it's audio. But when you go mine and you touch yourself, people are like, oh, I get that. And there's no spoken part there. And if you folks, I'm telling you, go to his YouTube channel, and it might make your job better. It might make your marriage better. But it will make you certainly less fearful of talking on stage.
I
So,
hope so.
yeah, so that was an unashamed plug from a fanboy. So you also know a thing or two about the highs and the lows. So what's your high point in terms of career?
So I think there are two. I mean, it's very hard to beat that initial Thunderbirds experience because it was just so kind of stratospheric. You went from no one to someone overnight. I remember
Yeah.
the premiere in the UK was in London's Leicester Square, which is where
Oh,
all of
wow.
the major films are shown. And I remember being picked up by the driver from a hotel kind of bar just 10 minutes away from the destination. And I was in there chatting around. No one knew who I was, absolute nobody. And I stepped out onto that red carpet, and all of a sudden, people were screaming my name. People were asking for autographs. The paparazzi were flashing their bulbs at me,
Yeah.
and it was just like, oh wow, this is really fascinating how you can literally transform in the blink of an eye, and that's something that I've actually taken with me. I think in many ways in my career, you can be someone, you can be no one, from day to day, from minute to minute. But actually, what's most important is who you are inside, because
Yeah.
the outer world is very kind of subjective, and you need to
Fickle
be
too.
exactly, and you need to be able to keep yourself grounded, and you need to be able to keep yourself centered, so that you know who you are, because it's very easy to kind of get lost in all of that noise. But that whole experience was absolutely amazing, and then I've had some other like pieces of stage work in the UK where I've just loved the text that we were working on. Great company, really kind of transformational opportunity to explore something in a deeper way than you do in film.
Yeah.
Or certainly the films that I was in were more kind of those broader brushstrokes. They're not things you're going to win an Oscar for.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're working on a really interesting play, you're kind of going that level deeper. So I think from a creative perspective, those are the highs. From a low perspective, I think the biggest shock to my system actually involves Simon Cowell, who some of your listeners will be familiar with from American X Factor.
Yeah.
So I was cast in the UK as a lead in a kind of prime time Saturday night drama. It was called Rock Rivals, and it was a fictional version of the X Factor. And my character had been scripted to be one of the 2 finalists of the show. And then what the plan was that we were going to film alternative endings to the show. The public were going to decide. They'd open up a vote, and the winner would have their ending shown, and then would actually release a single into the UK singles market. So this was like a crazy thing. And I filmed that show for a couple of months. I had to move over to Ireland, and it was all filming over there. And one afternoon, as I was leaving set, the second AD, who's the person that kind of tells you what your schedule is and make sure everyone's in the right place at the right time,
Assistant director, right?
yeah, she said, Dominic, we don't need you tomorrow. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I've been in like every day. I'm the lead character in this show, so I'm always on set. And she said, yeah, we're giving you a day off, so enjoy it. So I thought, fantastic. And I took the following morning. I went into Dublin to grab a cup of coffee and to buy some new gym gear, because I was having to go to the gym all the time, keep fit and all of that sort of stuff. And as I was walking around town, I got a phone call on my mobile phone, and it was the producer saying, "Can you come back to your apartment? We're having a cast meeting." And I was like, "Oh, come on, Emma, like, it's my day off." And she was like, "No, we really need you to come back." So I said, "Okay, give me half an hour, and I'll be back in the apartment." And when I got back to the apartment building, the apartments had a kind of courtyard in the middle, and all the cast were staying there. So you could normally see the lights on, you could see who was home. And I walked into the courtyard and it was dark and no one was there. So that's a bit strange. So I went into my apartment and I was having to prepare a song for the next episode. So I was playing it on the piano. So I just thought, I'll do some rehearsal. I'll learn my lines for the scenes that I'm shooting tomorrow. And again, like half an hour passed, no cast meeting, what's going on? And finally, my UK mobile phoned, different handset. And I was like, oh, it was my agent's number. And suddenly I just knew instinctively, this is not good. So I picked up the phone and Claire said, "Look, Dominic, I don't know how to tell you this, but they have decided to pay you out of your contract and we're bringing you home." And what had happened was that Simon had been out in the US doing his thing, hadn't really paid attention to the casting process, and then had come back to the UK. He was a creative consultant on the show, had watched the rushes, which are the early kind of footage of the show, and had seen my character. And I, back in the day, had like bleached blonde hair and very kind of blue eyes. And his thing was that I was far too boy band and that character should be much more grungy. And so purely based on my looks, nothing to do with my acting,
Wow.
paid out of the show and sent home. So you can go from a very high to a very low very quickly.
Well, a lot of fantastic people have been cast aside by Simon Cowell. So
Badge of honor.
yeah, well, and he doesn't have he doesn't have a real reputation for kindness in terms of delivery.
That's the hard thing, because it wasn't. He never said directly to me, "You're out." He didn't say, "You're fired." He
Said, "I hate your hair."
exactly. I mean, he said he was asked about it in the UK press, and he said nice things about my acting. He just said, "Look, he doesn't look right." So, yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So, as you and so this is one of the things my wife told me to stop. I have to stop saying because that's a leading question. I'm working on it. I'm working on it for Dominic. I'm working on it for Sarah. Your experience in writing led you also to bring up this new book called Cut Through. Cut Through. I look at that and I think, wow, cut through what?
Noise, Jim. I
Cut
mean,
through the noise.
there is so much distraction when we are presenting, when we're pitching, when we're trying to get an idea to land with an audience. In today's day and age, we're not just fighting for the attention in the room. Everyone's sitting with a device on the table. Their, emails are pinging. Their Slack, Teams,
Yeah.
yada yada yada, and
Yeah.
so we have to work, I think, a lot harder to grab our audience's attention than maybe we had to do even 3 to 5 years ago.
Certainly.
Think, to be able to take an idea and have it land with an audience so that they can remember it and take action upon it is such an important skill.
But this is bigger than a guy like me who speaks to a stage. You talked about pitches, and I've seen some of your work where you're delivering keynote speeches to sales conferences, and you're teaching people how to, and I'm going to use the word impact, but you're teaching people how to impact on an interpersonal basis, not just from a delivery. And so the subtitle of the book, give us that again.
It's called Cut Through: The Pitch and Presentation Playbook. And
Okay, the pitch and presentation. That's very eloquent in its simplicity, but it's very distinct. Tell us about the subtitle.
I wanted to create a really simple how-to. I wanted to paint a series of steps that you can take that will, as much as anyone can, guarantee you the outcome. So if you follow those 6 Ds and you work through them, and again, it's not paint by numbers. You've got to bring yourself to this process, but
Yeah.
there is a clear process that you can walk through, just like an actor, arriving in the rehearsal room and being given the script, through to opening night when the press come in and everyone gives them a standing ovation at the end. There's a clear journey that you need to go through if you want to have the
Yeah.
best possible chance of that outcome.
And it's a bit of work, so it requires that step by step, walk, crawl, walk, run. And so what inspired you to write Cut Through?
I've been working with organizations for about 15, 16 years now. And I noticed that the presentation or the pitch was probably the highest stakes environment that people find themselves in their career. It can be defining. You get the job because of it, or you
Yeah.
lose the job because of it. You win the client. So that these things are not passive. They're really active. And I saw people struggling. I saw people making just fundamental mistakes. Like the amount of people that I coach that you say, okay, so tell me about the speech that you're going to give, and they go, oh, let me show you the PowerPoint, and I'm like, whoa, how do we get there? We haven't even started. We don't even understand the question we're answering, let alone designing the slides.
Yeah.
And in a business context with sales teams, you'll quite often see people have a set of slides or a brochure or something that they kind of take people through, and you can see the audience kind of nodding off and sort of slowly losing the will to live because it's not tailored, because it's not conceived with that particular audience in mind. So I wanted to give people a methodology that they could work with that would help them rethink the way that they pitch, the way that they present, and give them real practical tools along the way.
Yeah, I work with a lot of business leaders, and they will instantly recognize how much work it is to get to the pitch. Because I mean, all the work happens before then, and then they kind of vomit it out in a PowerPoint slide, and they're like, "We're better." Okay, just so you know, we're better.
Okay, yeah.
And everybody, and like you say, to your point, everybody nods off a bit. And so, what is one of the things that, or let's walk through those five points that you bring up.
So I think about it as 6 steps,
Six.
and
I'm sorry.
it's interesting. You say, you'll see people put in all of that work beforehand and then kind of vomit the thing out in front of the audience. What I would really encourage people to do, especially in a sales context, if you are preparing, a response to a proposal, for example, then prepare with the presentation in mind. So as you're sending that sales collateral through, It might be a brochure, it might be a PowerPoint deck or whatever. Think about the journey that you want to take people on in the actual pitch itself, not just what's the first email that I'm going to send. But when I think about the cut through methodology, we have these 6 Ds. So it starts with discover, then distill, design, drill, deliver, and debrief. Discover is that stepping back. Let me understand the big picture. What actually is the question that I'm trying to answer here? Who are the audience? What could I possibly put into this mix? I don't need to decide on anything right now. I just need to say that case study's interesting. It might be good to make that point. Who might be on the team if we're going to do a group pitch, for example? And we just throw all of those raw ingredients out there and go, what have we got? Without making any decisions. Then once you've done that kind of big picture work, we move into distill and we start to strip that back. So what is the big message I'm trying to get across? What might be the 3 or 4 things that I want people to remember? Like, no one's going to remember the 27 key benefits to your product or service. No one cares. Like, if you manage to make them remember 3, you're absolutely winning. So what are those things? How do you want them to feel? What is some of the what I call stardust? What case studies or facts or figures really support the proposition that you have? And if this is a presentation internally, exactly the same process is involved. If you're giving a TED talk, if you're standing up in front of your classmates at school or university, these same principles apply. So discover, distill, and then design. So we're not starting with the PowerPoint. We're not starting by scripting the thing. We've done all of that pre-work, and then we can say what's the best way to share this visually. What is the narrative that I want to create? And in the book, I share a number of different formula that you can use. So again, not one size fits all, but there's a great way to start a presentation, which is star, a great way to end a presentation, which is salt. And then in the middle, there are numerous ways that you can structure that story so that you keep the audience on the edge of their seat.
Yeah.
Next step is drill. Actors know how to rehearse. Most people in business don't really think that that's a thing. It is. If you want to be really confident, you've got to say the words out loud. You've got to create that kind of muscle memory. And then we get to deliver. So that's a whole chapter in there on the sorts of things you need to be thinking about to prepare, to warm up, the tech, all of those kind of gremlins that could get you as you start. And then the final step, which I think many people forget, they're sort of so relieved to get the thing done that they don't debrief. They don't sit back and go, what did I learn from that? If it went well, what can I carry forward? If it didn't, then what do I need to do differently next time? And so essentially it becomes a virtuous circle. Once we've distilled, then we can start again. And, to anyone listening, as someone who speaks professionally for a living, the work is never done. I'm constantly learning, refining, changing, tweaking, watching myself back, listening to the audio and thinking, how can I do this better?
Continuous improvement. Continuous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that resonated that you told me just now, used the word story. In business, we think that data points sell, but data points don't sell, do they?
No, I mean, there's a great Fleet Street newspaper adage that is facts tell, stories sell. And I'm sure that's familiar to many of your listeners, but it is absolutely true. I always encourage the teams that I'm working with to think, what is the narrative behind the numbers? What is the human story that connects the dots? Because people can't create an emotional attachment to a figure, right?
Yeah.
We can create an emotional attachment to a number if you attach an emotional attachment to it. So that's your job as you're crafting your message, to think, You know, what do I want people to feel about this? And how can I translate this into something that is really kind of obvious in the real world?
Yeah. One of the things that you coached me on was that, like, and you didn't even know it because you were on YouTube, but people see and they hear and they smell and they taste, but they're just sitting in a chair. They're just watching you, and you're taking them on that trip. How does that translate into a corporate environment where you're trying to impress a boss or win a client or things like that? Why do you want people to experience that?
So I think it's about helping people take an imaginative leap.
Mm.
I am always petrified when I talk to a team or a coachee, and I say, you know, what are you trying to do in this conversation or this presentation? And if they say I'm trying to update the person, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like we're in trouble here, because as a human being, like I can update software, but I can't update humans, right? I can share information with humans, and I can make them feel something about the information that I'm sharing. So when I can get you to make an imaginative leap,
Mm.
our human brain can't distinguish really between what's real and what's imagined. Like you guys have just had Thanksgiving. We've got Christmas coming up. If I get you to think about the turkey that was or will be on that centerpiece, and really kind of see the kind of crispy skin. Sorry to any vegetarians listening. To really kind of smell that smell, the gravy, the cranberry sauce. Imagine just putting that first mouthful into your mouth. I would imagine that some of you I have started to salivate, right?
For sure.
Your brain is going like, show me the turkey. Like, where's the turkey? And it's the same principle when you're, you know, trying to get a pay rise or get a promotion from your boss. If you can help your boss imagine what it would be like to have you in that role, how it would feel, how less stressed they might feel, or more productive the team might be, and to imagine the number on that balance sheet once you drive those sales. Like, if they can see that, they start to believe it, and they're
Yes.
already kind of in that moment, that future state with you. So that's why we need to engage people's imagination and really help them take that leap. Otherwise, it just becomes an intellectual exercise.
Yeah. You know, the ideas that you proffer on YouTube through Impact, and now I'm anticipating through Cut Through, which is in on Amazon December 2nd. And so we're just past December 2nd. I hate to date podcasts, but December 2nd, I'm not going to tell you what year it'll be there next year. Cut Through is the book. Dominic Colenso is the author. And let me tell you, there are some perfect answers that are very profound and very simple for people who are scared to crawl up on a stage or crawl up on a in front of a corporate boardroom. And what led you to like solve these problems for people who are? Because my hook was, folks, I'm going to help. I'm going to help you get on stage of the number one fear in America of public speaking. What led you to help people through this?
Just saw that I had this skill set and this knowledge
Mm.
that would make a difference. I fell into it really. I got asked by someone that ran a business if I come in and help them with some storytelling, and you know, I
Wow.
will say yes to anything once.
Yeah.
And so I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I shared some of the things that I now share on YouTube and in the books in the room, and I could just see the pennies drop. And I
Hmm.
thought, wow, that's fascinating. This stuff makes a difference.
Yeah.
And then I started speaking to people after the sessions, and they'd come up and say, you know, thank you, that's been so useful. And I thought, I've got to find a way to share this more widely. And that led me to go down a whole kind of rabbit hole in terms of coaching and understanding how people learn, and thinking about how to position and market and, you know, spread the word. Because yeah, like anything, it's great to have an idea up here, but if you can't make it live and breathe in the hearts and the minds of your
Mm.
just an idea. So I had to figure out how to get out there and share it. And we're so lucky in the age that we live in with YouTube and that ability to, we're thousands of miles away from each other, Jim, and yet here we are having this conversation, and you've been able to, watch some of my stuff, and hopefully it's helped, and that's just a brilliant feeling.
Well, it has, and it's just a pond, but you're on the other side of it. So, as I look forward, what can we look for next from Dominic?
Going to be a lot more focus on the YouTube channel coming up. I'd really like to grow that, and mainly because it has this ability to just reach so many people, and I love seeing the feedback in the comments, people saying, I've just delivered a presentation and this really helped, or I've spoken to my boss about my pay rise and I think I'm going to get one, and you're like, that's just absolutely brilliant. In terms of writing another book, I've got to be really careful here because I think my wife might divorce me if I
We don't want that to happen.
if I jump in and do another one too soon. It
Yeah.
takes a huge amount out in terms of family time. It's running it's having a job on top of a job. So
Yeah.
I'm probably just going to enjoy the afterglow of Cut Through for a while.
All right.
And there'll be lots more kind of interesting stuff. I'm toying with the idea of some more public courses as well. I'm currently work mainly with corporate organisations, but there might be the opportunity to do something a little bit broader as well.
Well, I first want to say thank you, and then there's always a question that we ask on the Grampian. Dominic, you've lived a tremendously big life by any measure, and there is a person who has impacted your life in such a significant way that you just want to say thank you right now. Who is that person?
That person is the person that I spoke of earlier, Liz Manning, my drama teacher way back when, for just having that belief and giving me the confidence to be myself. I hope that's the kind of main skill that I pass on is seeing the greatness in everyone and saying, look, with a few little tweaks, you can go out there and be the best version of yourself.
Right on. Well, Liz Manning from the Grampian, thank you. Dominic, how can people get in touch with you?
Please follow me on YouTube. Come over to my website, dominiccolenso.com. Grab a copy of the books. And if you have questions and if you want to find out more, then please just email me, dominic@dominiccolenso.com. I respond to everyone.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the Grampian. We appreciate you, and we appreciate the free YouTube lessons. I can say that they have impacted my life, and I'm going to cut through the noise. So until next time, Grampian Nation, you keep having those Grampian-sized dreams. This is Jim, and do something about them. This is Jim, and I am out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.